Pope Francis reached Revivia prison to open the second Jubilee Holy Door. For the Holy Father, this was the third visit to the prison during his pontificate.
The Vatican has always been a place of tradition, stability, and deeply rooted beliefs, unchanging through centuries of history. But now, something unprecedented has happened. Pope Francis, a leader known for his humility and willingness to challenge the status quo, has made a decision that has sent shockwaves through the Catholic Church and beyond. This isn't just another reform or an adjustment to doctrine, it's a decision so bold, so unexpected, that it's left theologians, world leaders, and everyday believers grappling to make sense of it, a decision that could redefine faith and reshape the future of one of the oldest institutions in the world. And yet, behind the walls of the Vatican, the reasoning is clear, but the implications are staggering. Pope Francis's vision for the future of the Catholic Church, which has 1.3 billion followers, stands at a fascinating crossroads. Under his leadership, known for its groundbreaking approach to tradition, this pope has spent over a decade reshaping the Church's priorities, drawing both admiration and criticism from around the globe. But what lies ahead? How does Pope Francis envision the Church's future? From the moment Pope Francis greeted the world on the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica in 2013, his vision became clear. This would not be a papacy rooted in pomp, but in people. He chose humility over grandeur, living in a modest guest house instead of the ornate apostolic palace. This choice wasn't just symbolic, it set the tone for a papacy grounded in simplicity and service. Francis's leadership has revolved around three central themes: inclusivity, humility, and outreach to the marginalized. His efforts to welcome people from all walks of life, whether poor, displaced, or feeling ostracized by the Church, mark a profound shift from tradition. Take his remarks on LGBTQ+ individuals, for instance. While the Church's doctrinal stance hasn't changed, Pope Francis's words, "Who am I to judge?" offered a sense of openness many hadn't felt before. The same can be said of his advocacy for immigrants, his visits to refugee camps, and his emphasis on interfaith dialogue. These are not just acts of goodwill, they signal a Church trying to bridge divides in an increasingly fragmented world. Could this shift in tone be enough to bring back those who feel the Church has left them behind? The stakes are higher than ever. In addition to his focus on inclusivity, Pope Francis has waded into broader societal issues that extend far beyond the Church. His encyclical Laudato Si is a groundbreaking document that reframed climate change as a moral issue, urging Catholics and the world to care for our common home. By linking faith to environmental stewardship, Francis positioned the Church as a leader in tackling one of humanity's greatest existential threats. He didn't stop there. Through initiatives aimed at addressing global inequality, Pope Francis has consistently challenged economic systems that prioritize profit over people. His vocal criticism of unfettered capitalism has sparked debates not only within the Church, but among world leaders. But these progressive stances have not come without pushback. Critics within the Church, particularly among conservative factions, worry that Francis's approach may stray too far from traditional teachings. This tension between tradition and reform is a defining feature of his papacy. But here's the question: can Pope Francis balance innovation without breaking the Church's deeply rooted traditions? It's a tightrope walk like no other. While Pope Francis's reforms have made waves, they come at a time when the Church faces immense challenges. Chief among them is declining attendance, especially in Europe and North America. Many younger people see religion as outdated or irrelevant to their lives, creating a widening gap between the Church and the modern world. This isn't merely about empty pews, it's about the Church's very survival in regions where its influence was once unshakable. Younger generations, shaped by digital culture and shifting values, often question the Church's positions on issues like women's roles, LGBTQ+ rights, and sexual abuse scandals. And yet, Pope Francis seems unafraid to face these critiques head-on. In a world where institutions are often rigid, his willingness to listen and adapt stands out. But will it be enough? What happens when centuries of tradition collide with a rapidly changing world? The answer may shape not just the Church, but the course of history. Pope Francis has made it clear that he does not seek to dismantle the Church's traditions, but to ensure they resonate in today's world. He has called for a Church that is more synodal, a term meaning walking together, where decisions are made collectively rather than dictated from the top. This shift, though subtle, could mark a new era of leadership, fostering a sense of shared purpose among clergy and laity alike. Yet critics argue that this approach risks diluting the Church's core teachings. They see Francis's moves toward reform, such as relaxing some restrictions on divorced and remarried Catholics, as steps toward compromise rather than clarity. But Francis seems undeterred. His vision for the Church's future includes not only continuity in its core mission but also innovation in how it engages with a fractured world. Whether through embracing modern communication tools or advocating for social justice, Francis envisions a church that is both steadfast and responsive. Could this blend of old and new breathe new life into the Church, or will it deepen the divides already present within it? As Pope Francis approaches the 11th year of his papacy, his legacy is already monumental. Yet the future he envisions is still unfolding. One of the most pressing issues is ensuring the Church's leadership reflects his values of humility and openness. Speculation abounds about who will succeed him and whether that leader will continue his path of reform. But Francis's vision is bigger than any one leader. It's about creating a church that doesn't just preach but acts, a church that stands with the oppressed, listens to the voiceless, and seeks unity in an increasingly divided world. From climate change to interfaith dialogue, his approach signals a church not retreating from the world's problems but stepping into them. As the Church steps into uncharted waters, the question remains, will it rise to meet the challenges of a new era, or will it falter under the weight of its own history? Despite the challenges, Pope Francis's vision for the Catholic Church is ultimately one of hope. He believes in a church that reflects Christ's teachings not just in doctrine, but in action. Whether through his tireless advocacy for the marginalized, his bold environmental calls to action, or his gentle reminders of God's love for all, Francis has consistently urged Catholics to think beyond themselves. As the Church moves forward, it's clear that Pope Francis has laid the groundwork for a faith that is inclusive, compassionate, and resilient. The road ahead may be uncertain, but under his leadership, the Catholic Church has taken steps toward a future that feels both deeply rooted and refreshingly open. The Catholic Church stands at a crossroads, facing a world that is more interconnected and yet deeply divided. As Pope Francis approaches the twilight of his transformative papacy, the question on everyone's mind is clear: what qualities will define the next leader of the Church? This isn't just a question of theology or tradition, it's about what the Catholic Church represents in a rapidly changing world. In a world torn apart by divisions, can the Church's next leader mend the global fractures? One of the most critical qualities for the next pope is the ability to unite. The Church itself is diverse, spanning continents, languages, and cultures, and its members often hold conflicting views on issues like tradition, reform, and morality. Beyond internal divisions, the Pope must also serve as a bridge builder in a fragmented world, fostering peace among different religions, nations, and communities. Pope Francis's efforts to engage with other faiths, particularly Islam and Judaism, have set a high bar. The next pope will need to not only continue this dialogue but deepen it, navigating the complexities of interfaith relationships. Imagine a world where the Catholic Church plays a central role in resolving tensions between Christianity and Islam in the Middle East, for example, or among competing ideologies and polarized societies. But unity doesn't mean uniformity. The next pope must embrace the Church's diversity while encouraging mutual respect and understanding. With over 40% of Catholics living in Latin America, a growing presence in Africa, and deep roots in Europe and North America, the Church's global tapestry is its greatest strength. The new leader must weave these threads together, creating a church that feels like home to all its members. What if power isn't about prestige but about service? The next pope must embody this radical truth. Humility has become the hallmark of Pope Francis's leadership, from choosing to live in the modest Vatican guest house to washing the feet of prisoners. His papacy has redefined what it means to lead. The next pope will need to carry forward this spirit of service, ensuring that the Church remains a champion for the marginalized and a source of comfort for those in need. This isn't just about grand gestures, it's about connecting with everyday people in authentic, meaningful ways. The future pope must be someone who can walk into a crowded refugee camp and listen, not just speak, someone who sees the suffering of the poor as a call to action, not just a distant problem. The pastoral care element of the role is equally vital. Catholics worldwide look to the Pope for guidance not only on spiritual matters but also on how to navigate the challenges of daily life. The next leader must be approachable, empathetic, and deeply in tune with the joys and struggles of ordinary people. They must embody the kind of leadership that doesn't seek to rule from above but walks alongside the faithful. The Catholic Church's future lies where its faith is growing the fastest. Can the next Pope embrace this shift? The Global South, encompassing regions like Africa, Latin America, and parts of Asia, is now the heart of Catholicism. With vibrant communities and increasing numbers, these areas represent the Church's greatest hope for the future. Yet they've often been overlooked in favor of the traditional European centers of power. This must change. The next pope must actively uplift voices from these regions, ensuring they have a place at the decision-making table. Africa, for example, is home to some of the fastest-growing Catholic populations, with dynamic congregations and young, passionate clergy. Latin America remains a Catholic stronghold, but it faces challenges from secularism and evangelical movements. In Asia, especially the Philippines and India, the faith thrives despite cultural and religious pluralism. By highlighting these regions and prioritizing their concerns, the next pope can make the Church truly global. This includes addressing pressing issues like poverty, migration, and climate change, which disproportionately impact the global South. It also means listening, really listening, to the unique perspectives and needs of Catholics in these regions. The symbolic power of electing a pope from the global South cannot be understated. It would signal a profound shift, recognizing that Catholicism is no longer a European institution but a worldwide faith. Leaders like Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle from the Philippines and Cardinal Peter Turkson from Ghana embody this inclusive vision, making them strong contenders for the role. If the next pope comes from the global South, it could redefine Catholicism's identity for generations to come. The question of who will succeed Pope Francis has stirred curiosity not only within the Catholic Church but around the world. With whispers echoing through Vatican halls and speculation brewing in religious and secular circles alike, three names consistently rise to the surface. Each of these cardinals embodies a unique vision for the future of the Church, their strengths and challenges shaping what could be a monumental era ahead. Cardinal Pietro Parolin is the first candidate. Often described as the Vatican's Prime Minister, Cardinal Pietro Parolin serves as the Secretary of State, one of the most influential positions in the Catholic hierarchy. His work doesn't often make headlines, but his fingerprints are all over the Church's global strategy. Known for his quiet but effective diplomacy, Parolin has been at the forefront of Vatican efforts to mediate peace and advance religious freedom worldwide. One of his most high-profile achievements is the controversial Vatican-China Agreement, a groundbreaking deal aimed at reconciling the state-controlled Chinese Catholic Church with the Vatican. The agreement allows both sides a say in the appointment of bishops in China, a previously contentious issue. While hailed by some as a bold step toward unity, others criticize it as a compromise that risks the independence of the underground church. Parolin's strengths lie in his sharp geopolitical instincts. He has skillfully navigated delicate relationships with global powers, from the United States to the Middle East. His efforts to foster interfaith dialogue, particularly with Islam, demonstrate his ability to build bridges in an increasingly polarized world. His calm demeanor and focus on unity make him a steady hand during turbulent times. But can diplomacy alone inspire a flock yearning for spiritual connection? Critics argue that Parolin's diplomatic focus might overshadow the pastoral dimensions of the papacy. While his political acumen is unquestionable, some worry that his approach might lack the personal touch required to connect with everyday Catholics. Still, his supporters believe his deep understanding of the Church's global role makes him a compelling choice in an era defined by complex international challenges. The next candidate is Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle. Lovingly nicknamed Asia's Pope Francis, Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle radiates warmth and humility. From his modest upbringing in the Philippines to his current role as head of Caritas Internationalis, the Church's global humanitarian arm, Tagle embodies the kind of leadership that draws people in. With his trademark smile and approachable style, he has become a beloved figure not only in Asia but across the Catholic world. Tagle's connection to the marginalized is palpable. Growing up in a country with significant poverty, he witnessed firsthand the struggles of the less fortunate. This experience shapes his ministry, which prioritizes the poor, the homeless, and those on the fringes of society. As Archbishop of Manila, Tagle didn't just talk about service, he lived it. From washing the feet of the poor to delivering aid during natural disasters, he made the gospel message of love and humility tangible. But does his compassion come at the cost of administrative strength? Tagle's ability to engage with young people is another hallmark of his leadership. In a time when many young people feel disconnected from religion, Tagle has used his relatability and humor to bridge the gap. His embrace of modern technology, including social media, allows him to connect with younger generations in ways that few church leaders have achieved. Despite his global appeal, some wonder if Tagle's compassionate style might lack the administrative rigor required to govern a worldwide institution like the Catholic Church. His critics question whether he can manage the Vatican's complexities. However, his supporters argue that his visionary and inclusive approach could bring renewal and hope to a church in need of both. What if the next pope is a voice for justice, equality, and the global South? The last candidate is Cardinal Peter Turkson. Hailing from Ghana, Cardinal Peter Turkson represents a historic possibility, a pope from Africa. As one of the Church's most vocal advocates for social and environmental justice, Turkson's leadership is rooted in moral clarity and a commitment to systemic change. His perspective from the global South, where Catholicism is thriving, could profoundly shift the Church's focus and priorities. Turkson played a pivotal role in crafting Laudato Si, Pope Francis's encyclical on environmental stewardship. His contributions underscored the moral responsibility to care for our planet, linking ecological concerns with the Church's mission to serve the poor. Turkson's deep understanding of how climate change disproportionately affects vulnerable communities highlights his dedication to addressing the intersection of justice and faith. As the first Ghanaian cardinal, Turkson's journey is a powerful testament to the Church's expanding reach. Africa, with its youthful and vibrant Catholic population, is a growing force within the Church, and Turkson's leadership could signify a historic embrace of this dynamism. He has consistently championed the voices of marginalized communities, advocating for policies that prioritize dignity over profit. Could his quiet resolve be exactly what the Church needs right now? While Turkson's moral leadership is widely admired, he is sometimes viewed as less charismatic than other contenders. His style is more contemplative and measured, which some critics see as a lack of dynamism. However, his supporters argue that his strategic alignment with Pope Francis's vision of inclusivity and justice makes him a natural successor. His emphasis on listening, collaboration, and ethical action could guide the Church into a new era of global relevance. As the Catholic Church faces an era of rapid change, the stakes for its next leader are enormous. Declining church attendance, generational disconnect, and tensions between modernity and tradition all demand a leader capable of addressing these challenges with grace and wisdom. Each of these cardinals, Parolin, Tagle, and Turkson, offers a unique path forward. Parolin's diplomacy could stabilize the Church in an increasingly fractured world. Tagle's compassion could inspire a new generation of Catholics to embrace their faith. Turkson's moral clarity could position the Church as a leader in global justice and environmental stewardship. But who among them can truly unite a global flock and lead the Church into its next chapter? The answer is anything but clear. Speculation continues to swirl, with Pope Francis himself offering hints but no official endorsements. What is certain, however, is that the next pope will inherit a Church at a crossroads, where decisions made now will ripple across decades to come. The race to succeed Pope Francis is about more than who will wear the white robes next, it's about the kind of Church that will emerge to meet the demands of an ever-changing world. Will it be a Church of diplomacy, as Parolin envisions? A Church of compassion and inclusion, as Tagle embodies? Or a Church of justice and bold action, as Turkson champions? The answers may come sooner than we think. But one thing is clear, the future of Catholicism is poised for transformation. What kind of leader do you believe the Church needs right now? During a private gathering with senior Vatican officials, Pope Francis spoke candidly about what the Church needs in its next leader. While stopping short of an official endorsement, his insights were both candid and thought-provoking. He praised Cardinal Tagle for embodying the very qualities the Church requires during these challenging times. The Pope's remarks felt deeply personal and carried significant weight. His admiration for Tagle's ability to connect with people, especially the youth and marginalized communities, stood out prominently. Pope Francis highlighted Tagle's humility and pastoral approach, describing him as a leader who genuinely lives the gospel. It's no secret that the Pope has long championed a vision of a Church that is inclusive, compassionate, and firmly rooted in serving those on the periphery. In Tagle, it seems Pope Francis sees a continuation of this legacy. Could a Filipino cardinal lead the global Church? Here's why Tagle's rise matters. One of the most striking aspects of Pope Francis's comments was his emphasis on the growing importance of Asia in the global Catholic Church. As the first Asian cardinal to emerge as a strong contender for the papacy, Tagle represents a profound shift in the Church's center of influence. With Catholicism flourishing in Asia, where vibrant communities and youthful populations are driving growth, Tagle's leadership could signal a new era of diversity and inclusion. Pope Francis recognized this shift, pointing to Tagle's unique ability to bridge global and regional audiences. Born in the Philippines, a nation where faith is deeply woven into the fabric of society, Tagle carries the stories and struggles of his people into every corner of the world. His work as the head of Caritas Internationalis, the Church's global charitable organization, has only strengthened his reputation as a compassionate advocate for justice, migration, and poverty relief. Tagle doesn't just preach humility, he lives it. It's no surprise that Pope Francis commended Tagle's pastoral approach. Known for his disarming humility and ability to connect with ordinary people, Tagle has earned the affectionate nickname, Asia's Pope Francis. His warmth and relatability have made him a beloved figure, not just in the Philippines but across continents. Tagle's work with young people is especially noteworthy. At a time when many young Catholics feel disconnected from the Church, Tagle has managed to break through. His use of social media and modern communication tools resonates with a generation that craves authenticity and engagement. His heartfelt messages, often tinged with humor and deeply personal stories, have struck a chord with youth seeking guidance and purpose. His connection with marginalized communities is equally powerful. Tagle's commitment to serving the poor and addressing inequality has been central to his ministry. Whether washing the feet of the homeless or speaking out on behalf of refugees, he has consistently prioritized the Church's mission to be a voice for the voiceless. But what does this mean for the Church's future and the millions of Catholics watching from the sidelines? The implications of Pope Francis's comments are vast. By identifying Tagle as a standout leader, the Pope is shaping the conversation around his successor. His remarks seem to set a roadmap for what the next era of Catholic leadership could look like: inclusive, compassionate, and globally connected. Tagle's potential leadership holds particular significance for younger generations. At a time when many question the relevance of religion in a modern, fast-paced world, Tagle's ability to engage with youth and speak to their aspirations could breathe new life into the Church. His advocacy for social justice, climate action, and human dignity aligns with the values that resonate deeply with today's younger audiences. For marginalized communities, Tagle represents hope and solidarity. His leadership style, marked by direct engagement and empathy, signals a Church that will continue to stand with the oppressed and address systemic injustices. Could Tagle's rise mean a new era of leadership for the global Church? Pope Francis's remarks also highlight a broader shift in the Church's identity. By elevating a leader from the global South, the Pope is embracing a more inclusive vision of Catholicism that reflects its diversity. With the Church experiencing growth in regions like Asia, Africa, and Latin America, this move underscores the need for leadership that resonates with these dynamic communities. Tagle's ability to appeal to both global audiences and regional faithful makes him uniquely positioned to guide the Church through its next chapter. His leadership would not only mark a symbolic milestone but could also bring fresh perspectives to long-standing challenges. The final choice remains uncertain, but has Pope Francis just pointed us toward the future? While Pope Francis's comments are not an official declaration, they carry immense symbolic power. His words have already sparked widespread speculation and debate about the future direction of the Church. For many, Tagle embodies the best of Pope Francis's vision, a Church that is humble yet bold, inclusive yet deeply rooted in its traditions. As Catholics worldwide await further developments, one thing is clear: Pope Francis's candid insights have set the stage for one of the most pivotal discussions in modern Church history. Whether or not Tagle ultimately becomes the next Pope, his example and the values he represents offer a compelling vision for the future of Catholic leadership. Would you agree with Pope Francis's choice, or could another leader rise to the occasion? The world is watching, and the story is far from over. Do let us know in the comment section. Stay tuned for more updates on this unfolding story. If you like this video, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any future content. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.